Yes, I can still remember them. The arcade machines in dark saloons full of kids and teenagers. For me it was back in the 90s. Fighting games, platformers and bullet hell games. I remember them all too well. I wish I had such a good memory for other things. I guess it all comes with repetition, what we carve in our minds. These were the good times, but I didn't know it just yet. When the age of those arcade saloons came to pass in early 2000s, in the place arise internet cafes, with decent great PCs and the newest consoles. We still had fighting games, racers and some of the arcade stuff, but new era began, of local and internet multiplayer, using PCs to play first-person shooters mostly. But that era ended as well. They all do eventually, but the craving stayed. Many indie developers satisfy it with their smaller and bigger games, giving the fans of all kind new titles to enjoy. But the same cannot be said about AAA developers. In that space, old-style game with modern audiovisuals is rarity indeed. Here comes Returnal, the third-person shooter that is literal return to bullet hell type of game in the modern engine. You are a female astronaut that wakes up at the crash site of her spaceship. You know almost nothing about what's going on. The story of the game is unraveling piece by piece, as you play another and another cycle, finding piece by piece elements to build up this puzzle. The elements that come into play are audiologues that our protagonist left in previous cycles, as well as the text left by the alien race, that we will need to translate as we progress further into the unknown. Not only action of roguelike bullet hell will accompany you during playthrough, but some mild horror elements as well. Do not worry, there are no jump scares here, it is more of a psychological tension building type of thriller. But no matter how hard it gets, Celine, cause that's the name of the character we control, is not a quitter, so she will go as long as you will be willing to. The gameplay itself is very simple, even if it consists of many moving parts, but you will not need to understand all of it at the start. You are stuck in the loop in the alien world, so roguelike system is very fitting here. The main meat of the gameplay is shooting the enemies and avoiding their attacks at the same time, and that aspect is done masterfully. Oftentimes I describe movement and combat in video games as smooth, but here on the scale of 1 to 10 the smoothness factor equals 11. It is on another level from all the rest it seems. It is fun to simply run around, jump and traverse the levels of a game. I even prefer it to the parkour system in recently reviewed Dying Light 2. But there is dark side to being able to control your character so well, namely the difficulty level. For the aging boomer gamer like me, the game is very difficult indeed. I never was a master of arcade games that requires reflexes and quick thinking, and as I'm getting older it is harder and harder for me to keep up. Wait a second, maybe that's why I am slowly turning from gamer to a game journalist. But fortunately there is no easy mode here. You get what you see and you will need to improve your skills during those fun hours in order to make some progress. It reminded me the most times when I was trying to beat a very hard title on Atari or Nintendo consoles in the confines of my own room. Even when you fail in one cycle, you can feel that you are getting better at the game, and you are hopeful for the next run that you will succeed in the end. As I mentioned before, there are many moving parts when it comes to the game systems. Maybe too many to be honest. You will need to use them to your advantage, cause YOLO approach will only bring you down. Talking about kamikaze tendencies, good thing the first boss needs to be killed only once. He whooped my ass plenty. You have an option to return there and kill him again if you want to. I, however, choose to let him be, as I defeated him only by a hair, to be honest. So how does this whole modern engine holds up in this, seemingly by many aspects, retro game? Well, very good indeed. Graphical presentation is on the high level, with many options to customize your visual experience. Performance is nothing to scoff at. Developers done a great job optimizing whatever they could in this fast-paced title. There is plenty of examples to support that claim. Hear me out, ray tracing doesn't halve your frame rates this time, which is the best I've seen so far from this technology. Impressive implementation, but still noticeably adds response latency to the gameplay. And I don't know about you, but I am very sensitive to any added milliseconds when it comes to the game responsiveness, so even in this best case scenario, I simply turned ray tracing off. What I turned on was DLSS, which looks and plays great, reducing the before mentioned input lag, and for once in our lifetime, volumetric fog that looks good and is very performant, which means it doesn't decrease performance by like 25% on the highest setting. Okay, sometimes it looks low resolution, you got me there. You can't have it all, am I right? Okay, what we got left? Ah yes, superb enemy design mixed with fitting environments. It looks like mix between Alien movies, Stargate film and Doom games out of all things. Game menu looks good and is functional, but it's not very intuitive, so you need to look hard to find some options. For me it was game language hidden in plain sight at the bottom of the screen. The last but not least, we got the audio design of the game. It is minimalistic with good voice actress in the role of main character. All of the sounds and noises are very fitting, so no complaints there. And music, though limited in quantity, by the nature of the game, is directed heavily in the ambience atmospheric style. Oh, it reminds me how I miss audio demos from PC scene back in the 90s. I know, I can hear you say again, okay boomer, but nonetheless for me it has a deep meaning. If you are a young viewer it may be odd to you, but in some years you're gonna have the same nostalgic feelings and thoughts about good old days. And if you are internet boomer age, as viewership analytics would suggest, you already know what I'm talking about. So the most important thing is now, did I enjoy the game? Hell yeah! Have I finished it? Hell no! Why is that, I hear you ask? Well, I only got to see the second boss, but after 10 hours of very good gameplay it was just enough for me. Game left me feeling good actually, even if I hadn't beat it. But the same, I have not beaten every single arcade machine game in my younger years, so what's fair is fair. 10 hours of very high quality gameplay was time well spent. Maybe someday I will revisit Returnal, but I'd rather put it back on the shelf for some time than quit it out of frustration. It is simply a very good game that I can recommend to anyone who likes great atmosphere, engaging and fluid combat, and a decent challenge added to all of that. I really hope that we will see more games like this in not so distant future, and with that kind of attitude, I'm gonna leave you. Until next, great late review.